Happy Thursday morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Tropical MBA podcast, where we help you grow a better, more profitable location-independent business. To help me in the process, I've got the boss man, my co-hostess with the mostest. Welcome back to the podcast, sir.
Thank you for the intro. We are back from DCBKK. You know what the most disappointing part of it is? I didn't see a single elephant. Just a total bummer.
Damn shame.
Must be going to the wrong places.
DCBKK is an annual event. This was our 12th anniversary edition. There are a tremendous amount of inspiring entrepreneurs in the room, and we're going to do a bit of an event recap and share with you some of our top lessons learned. So let's dig into it. First, some overview, Ian. This year's event featured over 330 entrepreneurs, listeners just like you, 100 plus seven-figure entrepreneurs, 55 DC Black members, 11 volunteers, 10 team members, both full-time and part-time, 14 session hosts on everything from AI to operations to hiring to exits and all manner of business topics. Already 130 members. This isn't an updated number, but 130 members have their tickets for next year already, which is amazing. And also just all kinds of really cool meetups. Like there was 54 unofficial meetups. So forget about all the official meetups. We had, pickleball, chess, a golf outing, elite mental performance workshop, rock climbing, AI for ad creative, AI ranking and visibility hacking, hiring practice, email cold calling. That's a shout out. Cold calling session. I love it. We had a 7-Eleven toasty crawl, personal branding, vibe coding. I could just keep going on. I mean, like you get a lot of smart people in the room and you hand over the event app and say, share your expertise with your peers, share your passion, share your interest. And that's essentially what we spend the week doing. What is a DCer? What makes a DCer unique? I took a stab at it this year, Ian. I want to share because I think, there's like a broad range of things that DC could mean for people. I think it means you have location flexibility. Location flexibility is a value. Time freedom, asset ownership, sharing over selling, practicing over preaching, making friends instead of contacts, cooperation over competition, nerding out on strong interests outside of business, and nerding out on business details as well. In the end, it's like a lot of not normal people who run businesses and very cool people too.
Dig into the not normal for a minute. Let's sit there on that. Like, why do you say not normal?
I think like it is tough to talk openly about what we do when you just walk out on the street and go to a public square, because it just doesn't really compute. And then when you want to dig in, people tend to not want to go there with you, because I think there's like a deeper level of ownership that the entrepreneur takes over their lives, and that begets a deeper level of curiosity. Sometimes if you just meet somebody new and you're having an interesting conversation, you might ask a question that's like a little too probing, because you're trying to go like, oh, you run a flower shop. You'd be like, well, how many customers did you have last year? And it's like, wait a second. I'm just like, I don't want to talk about how many, and I feel like that's what being in the DC is all about, is like just digging in and learning from each other. And events like DCBKK, we basically have them for 12 hours a day all week. By the end of it, you're just like flying out of there with momentum and ideas and feedback. And yeah, I just think it's like pretty rare. It's pretty tough, in day-to-day life to get those kinds of conversations.
I agree. I had a conversation with somebody last week about joining DC Black, and he was like a bit shy about joining because he's like a seven-figure entrepreneur and he's like not living out of a backpack.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, man, we were all living out of our backpacks with our laptops. That was like 15 years ago. Now it's the case that like, I don't know, 3/4 of the community has some level of home base.
But at the end of the day, I think it's not about your location modality nearly so much as like your approach to the flexibility that your business gives you in terms of the location. So
correct.
These, back in the day when we were doing our packing list and our backpack and stuff, It was cool. It was fun, but like it was also a symbol of like what's possible. You know, we have a warehouse, we have products, we have employees, and like here's my soap bag and my backpack. And
Yep. DCers are willing to go deep on just about any topic, meaning like there's hardly anything that's off limits. And I don't think like people abuse that either. Most of that means like going deep and being vulnerable on your business and your personal life and how they're intertwined together. Like trying to figure out like, hey, how can I live the life that I want to live and how can this business support me in doing that? And in fact, people super, super enjoy being asked the hard questions because like you said, in normal life, people that you've been on the street and your friends and family and whatnot, they're not asking those hard questions because then they would have to ask and answer those hard questions for themselves.
Yeah, totally. It's not a critique. It's just the reality. And on the other side of it, you have this concept of like sharing wins. So in normie society, if you get like a new job at a cool company, you can share that win. But if you had like your first $100,000 month, that you might want to limit the sharing.
Right.
If you had your first $250,000 month, if you sold your business for $4.3 million, I don't know. You might want to hold that one back from Facebook. But you can come to DCBKK and be like, I sold my business for $4.3 million yesterday. I'm actually not addressing any challenges at this particular conference. And everybody's going to be like, that's sick, you know? And they're going to ask about it and they're going to try to learn from it. On the other hand, we talk a lot about leading with challenges. That's one of the best ways to get something out of an event like this. It's a great way to grow friends, to like build trust with people. Just to say, you know, like I got this challenge with the team member, or I got this challenge with my funnel, or I got to replace this channel and I really don't know how to do it. And so that's what I want to talk about today. Our senior community manager, Alex, weighed in with some thoughts and he said, look, the age of the guru on the stage is over. Like there's no gurus up there. Like small group discussions are in, attendees sharing with each other. Attendees want to share and learn in this type of environment. A group discussion that's well executed is just as good as a workshop, is just as good as a talk. Leveling the experience out and really focusing on the value of getting the personal experience and knowledge from each member and their unique experience floating through the room and inspiring and informing the rest. As an event host, it's a cool position because people will come up to you and share with you. One member pulled me aside. This is like the kind of thing that will happen innumerable times throughout the week. But like, hey, I just want to let you know, like, this is the first year, like, I've actually come to this particular event because this is my busiest month and my premier product is happening right now. And because of what I've learned in this community in part, I'm here now and my team's doing a better job than that kind of thing, right? Like Alex wrote down here, there's something for everyone at the event. The variety of group discussions, the workshops, the food and types of parties. There's all kinds of cool stuff going on. But he said AI trends feel the most urgent. People want to go ahead and implement AI trends or AI workflows. So we had a lot of like sessions on that. And YouTube is the most talked about marketing channel in 2025. So I thought that was interesting from Alex. Shout out to Alex for helping us run a great event this year. Okay, without further ado, our top 5 insights. I want to give the theme of one of my favorite talks. So the theme was this, Ian, and this is my number 1 insight from the event. To understand if you're in the right business, ask if you enjoy solving the hardest problems that unlock the growth of that business. Let me say it a simpler way. Choose your hard. Don't choose in advance what you want the business to be. So this is an inversion from kind of how a lot of us get into internet businesses. We look at business models and we say, well, isn't that a really sexy model? Because I don't have to work that hard. I can travel anywhere. Like if I owned a business like that, it would be amazing. So you kind of like choose off the business buffet. Well, this member shared the challenges with that mindset and he compared 2 businesses. He said, this is the business I used to run. He was talking about how he was, you know, making a living, but just kind of getting by every year. It felt kind of like a job. And then the next business, he's like, this business did over $1 million in profit last year. Now, let me list off the specs of each business. And one business looked pretty easy to run, and then the other business kind of looked gnarly. So which business would you choose? And what was really fascinating to me is he said, look, the sexy business on paper, I'd have to come to DCBKK every year and get excited and get pumped up. And then I get out of here and I do things for a month and I kind of peter out. The idea is this. Let's say it's a sexy business model. Maybe add one category to your framework when selecting your next product, your next idea, your next business. And it's this: what are the hard problems to be solved in this model? And the thing is, a lot of us would choose say a marketing agency that sells our skill set. And the reason is because you can start the business quickly, you can run it from anywhere, has very good margins, and I get to do what I'm great at. But what he pointed out in that particular scenario is that the problems that unlock growth there are things like a killer sales process, high level of distribution, a kind of common inversion and challenge we talk about on the program. And he was like, look, I just didn't like solving those problems every day. And so I never contended with the hard problems that actually unlocked scale in the business. I relied on motivation versus a personal attachment and passion for solving those problems. And therefore, I never built any moat or sustainable advantage because I didn't dig in and solve those problems in a really, really unique way. And I felt like, man, this was a really interesting message because I think it kind of called a lot of people out. Who hasn't made this mistake if you started a few businesses?
The difficult part, though, I think about the message is how do you know? You have to be really honest with yourself, or you also have to see the other opportunity, which I think was the case in his situation. So he got the idea because this was an existing client of his. He was kind of peeking over the fence at the business, thinking maybe I could solve those types of problems.
Right.
And that's an advantage of going to an event like this. You got to look over the fence. You got to see what other people are doing. But most compelling for me, I think like you with his talk, was just this idea that everyone has different problems that they like to solve. So you got to figure out what problems you like to solve and what you're good at and what doesn't feel like it's work.
So the basic takeaway, number one, to summarize, is what if instead of selecting a business model for the attractiveness of the model, you selected it for the attractiveness of the problems that it presents? Pretty cool little thought experiment. Number two takeaway, the increasing popularity of hiring fractional and part-time. I'm curious if you could go into this a little bit. It feels like there was a lot of polarity messages about hiring at the conference. It was either you're not going in enough, you're not pushing the culture hard enough, you're not training your people, you're not evolving them, and you're losing a ton of leverage because you're missing the final 20% in terms of inspiring and training your staff. And then on the other side of it, you had people who were look, I don't do anything. I'm out of that game entirely. And so I feel like the entrepreneurs that came to this event, they're getting more granular and really dialed in on what their staffing perspective is and how they're managing it.
Some people want to have big teams and a bunch of meetings and whatever. The person talking on stage, I think we can shout her out, Laura Roeder. That's not her approach, but I do think that the extremes that she takes it to at times can be unique. And so she was able to kind of share how it works in her company and the different ways in which she controls the culture. We're hearing of the Facebook, Apple, Google, FANG companies or whatever, reducing their team size and having the same results in terms of revenue. I think that is also the case with our small little corner of the internet. And it's not necessarily because of AI or SaaS tools or whatever. I just think people are taking a look around the office and realizing that maybe headcount isn't something to brag about, and can I do more with less? And a lot of that probably comes down to also the talent pool, which is available. You can essentially hire amazing people in different parts of the world now for a fraction of what you used to be able to do that for. So there's a couple different factors I think that are coming together, but if I'm listening to Laura's talk, number one is like, you don't have to run your company like everybody else runs their company, meaning she doesn't have meetings. She does things a lot differently. She has a bunch of fractional people. There's not a huge culture, they're not going to barbecues together. That's her choice. That's how she wants to run her company. She's found team members that also enjoy that.
Okay, let me test out a sneaky psychology on you. I think there's this movement towards more documentation for virtual businesses, right? Now we're like recording our meetings and then like get an AI summary and like, here's what this person did. And then like, here's the paycheck for that, right? It's like we did an SOP episode like 12 years ago and it blew our minds. It's only like 12 years later that like the SOPs are writing themselves and like people are just doing work. And so I think, part of the reason like culture exists in like larger companies is number one, to prevent risk from being introduced into the system by inspiring your team to take non-selfless acts more regularly and look out for the brand when you're not looking out for it. And the second thing is like, well, I need it because I need to like have people work 50 hours a week, Well, what if people just work 10 hours a week? Or what if they work 5 hours a week? Or what if they work 25 hours a week? Like, can they be amped up and do a great job for that amount of time? I make money when I pay you X amount an hour to do exactly these things, exactly this well.
Yeah.
We can talk about it every quarter. You got a good life. I got a good life. See you never.
There's no real world business with like a physical location where you hire people and you're not sure what they're doing most of the time. It just doesn't happen. Everyone is doing something and you know exactly what it is and you know how it relates to revenue. Because if you don't know how it relates to revenue, they're like out of there. But somehow we started running these internet-based businesses, I think it's part of the reason is because they're really profitable. And so we started hiring a bunch of people because we thought, well, how do we make even more money? Well, you just probably hire more people, right? So it was like this weird cross between like old school business, I got to hire people to make me money, versus no, you just have like a very profitable business model. You actually don't need to hire more people to make you money, especially these days with SaaS and AI and everything else. So I do think, Dan, that we'll get to the point where we have a $1 billion company that's run by one person.
All right, Ian, number 3, you're often one simple feature away from dramatically increasing your pricing. And this is an idea that popped up for me when I was talking to Jesse Schoberg. Every time I talk to Jesse Schoberg, I get an idea that I want to talk about in the podcast. He's a font of ideas. Thank you, Jesse. But the concept is interesting and counterintuitive because you often have to do like so many things to charge $100 a month. Once you do that, it's often like this one like simple counterintuitive thing that appeals to the upmarket, mid-market, and or enterprise clients. Like for a smaller business, the product could completely revolutionize your company and double your sales. Mm-hmm. The larger business, meanwhile, is like, do the fonts match up, or is Bob going to have access to this? Because like we got to make sure Bob can't get in. So they might be like a user access thing. Like if we're trying to describe the DC, right? It's like we have events, we have calls, we have blah, 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 blah. And then for 10x the price, you can just hang out with the people that have 7-figure businesses. It's like this one small little feature. Or we had a business coach. He was on the podcast a few weeks ago where it's like, the group coaching, you got the spreadsheet, you have this, but it's like, if you just want to talk to me, that's 10x the price. So it's like if you're making money and your product is valuable to customers, often your pricing does not scale with that particular feature set. We're deeply concerned about value. We're sophisticated in understanding like how much people get paid and all this stuff. So I was talking to a guy who used to work for an NGO, okay? And he was talking about earlier in his career pulling his hair out because he was the lead marketer, right? And so you'd think that what an NGO would want you to do is to market the company or to market the NGO as effectively as possible. Okay. But it turned out to not be the case. That actually what they valued out of the marketer was showing their government donors that they were trying to market. And so long as they showed that they were trying, then they would get the government donations, which represented 80% of their annual revenue. Now, why is this important? because he had a incorrect idea of what was truly valuable. And it was frustrating because it wasn't what he valued about himself and it wasn't what he valued about marketing. And he knew he could do more. The problem is it's a liability for that organization, because if you try too hard in marketing, that means you're going to make some mistakes. And if you make some mistakes, it creates liability for the 80% of the revenue.
Right.
But the interesting thing about this NGO example is that it illuminates something true of all businesses, that we don't always value what is logical. We don't always value what grows our business. And this is particularly true when you're selling into the middle of a larger company. They have different concerns than maybe the board, maybe the CEO, et cetera, et cetera. And even those folks might not have logical or things that resonate with you. And so I think this is one of the beautiful things about being an entrepreneur, is that like this egolessness that's required at important times to see across the aisle and say, oh, I see what business they're in, or I see what they value now.
Yep. And back to point one, you might see what it is that people value and realize that you're not good at delivering it, or you don't want to deliver it.
All right, cool. Next point, number 4, go to your next event with your one big thing written on one big piece of paper. I got this from Timothy Mosier. He came on his podcast. He said, here's how I approach these events. I always get tons of value out of them. And so I ended up doing it. I wrote down on a piece of paper, and I'll reveal what it is in a minute. But I need to get some clarity on this particular thing. And if I do that, it'll all be worth it. And it makes conversations easier. It's just like a cool event hack. And you can really funnel the attention, the conversations you're in. Say, do you have 5 minutes to give me, or do you have a minute to let me know if you know anybody who could help me out with this?
Yeah.
And the answer is like, for sure, people will give you a lot of productive perspective. And so I think just this idea of like simplifying your event experience down to like, well, what would make this event worth it? Well, if I could solve this problem with clarity, the whole 4 days would be worth it. And so just go into it with day one with that problem clarified on a piece of paper.
Yep. And the cool thing about that, Dan, and we've been preaching this for like a long time, is, if you come in with your one big thing, the event is long. So there's going to be a lot of time for you to help people think about their big thing. And I think that's like the most probably beautiful thing about these events, is how everyone is kind of on that mission.
Yeah, you walk with clarity. You walk with a number. You walk with a hypothesis that you know how to test and you know how to resource, and you're off to the races. Yep. And, when you're speaking with entrepreneurs who have businesses that they have complete control over, it's like they're going to go do it. It's not always going to be the best thing, but something is going to happen. I think part of the fun about being in these types of conversations that are not normal is like, you're not just swapping ideas. They're very likely to do something about this. And like, people are going to get involved in customers. And like, it's a cool feeling that like, wow, something's going to shift because of this conversation.
Well, you make a simple point that shouldn't be swept under the rug, which is like the amount of authority that these folks have in their lives is like through the roof compared to most normal people. One of the like most frustrating things about coaching or giving advice or sharing experiences is when like it goes wasted because they can't do anything about it. They don't have the authority. And all these people, 350 people in a room in Bangkok, and like every single one of them has the authority to make change in their life and their business. And so when you're talking with them, what you're talking about is going to go further than it will in most people's lives.
Cool. So we've got number 1, choose your hard. Number 2, hire fractional or polarize your approach to culture. Number 3, you're one dumb feature away from 10x pricing. Number 4, go to conferences or go to events with your one big thing. And our final takeaway is, dang, why won't our friends join? I feel like we need to do a better job of explaining this. I was like, I don't know anything else like this. I don't know if there's like a week where you can be around for like $1,000. You can be in a 5-star hotel. You can be around over 100 7-figure founders, many of whom are 8-figure, many of whom don't need to work another day for the rest of their lives. Over 300 people who are business owners, averaging on the way to 7 figures. Everybody business nerding out, everybody there to help each other. 5 stars everywhere, food around every corner, like luxurious places to spend time with, a complete sharing. I'm not asking for anything in return environment. It's super fun. And I'm just like, man, I could think we need to like come up with a better sales pitch. I guess I'm just trying it right now. I don't know, man. On the other hand, it's a community. It's not a product. So I think maybe we struggle with that.
Well, I think here's the thing, dude. I had a lot of great ideas about this event. My first great idea was Tuk Tuk on stage. Team executed well on that. This year it was Boat on stage. Team executed on that. Next
Genius.
year, I'm just going to call it out right now so everybody feels compelled to like come to the event. Elephant on stage. That's my goal. I think that's what's going to bring people to this conference next year.
There you go. Okay, we got some honorable mentions. AI workflows everywhere. Just tons of like workshops of people getting together, like building stuff live while they're sitting together, solving operational sales marketing challenges. Personal brand refreshes, like going out and like just taking a peek at your personal brand and like making it go to work for you is like a very high leverage thing because it doesn't take a lot of time to just re-clarify how you provide value to the world, why you're unique, and how people can reach out to you. I'm willing to guess like the over-under on the amount of months people listening to this have done that is like 16. So it's like an enormous opportunity to do that. That could take you half a day. And then leadership as a category of skill set to increase the amount of money you earn as both a team member and a business owner. So leadership is like, I just wrote down that term for this podcast is like, what does leadership mean for bootstrappers? It means like being persuasive. It means understanding the stories you're telling. I think like in day-to-day life and in your business, there are like real things like this person is complaining or this person paid some money or this floor is dirty, you know, and you like respond to all that stuff. But like leadership is this ability to hold up something that is less real in a way, which is like a goal, an idea, a movement, a project, and somehow make it real and make it compelling to people and to lead them towards this thing that might not, without a leader, be yelling as loud as the leaky faucet, as the dirty sink, as the complaining customer. And so I do think that there's a lot of value in thinking about what leadership means for us as founders and in our companies in general. I got a leaky faucet though, so I got to get out of here. All right. Another year, another DCBKK, another amazing time. If you're listening to this at home, whether you live out of a backpack, a hotel, or a sprawling mansion somewhere fancy, or a beach villa, if you're listening to this at home and you run a location-independent business, I do hope that someday you'll come out and join us. If any of this resonated with you in terms of the sharing, the helping each other out, the getting excited for each other, and just building friendships over the years, it's a fun thing. Now, here's an interesting little announcement is that we're doing this all over again in Mexico City in May.
Yep.
So it's an interesting time to circle in your calendar and get to those DC minimums so that you can come out and join us in Mexico City.
Speaking of maximums, before the end of the year, we've got one more event, and that is in New York and in December. This is for DC Black members. So if you run a 7 or 8 figure business and you'd like to join DC Black, again, everything that we talked about today goes on at all these events. So you're literally one event away from solving whatever your biggest problem is. Come join us in New York City here in the next month.
All right. Thanks. If you came out to DCBKK this year, we appreciate you. Thanks for coming and contributing. And for the rest of you, we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next Thursday morning, as is per the usual.
See you then.